Welcome to Carlie's Couch. Thanks for joining us for another week. We appreciate you guys listening.
Shout out to y'all.
Every time. Happy Women's History Month. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I was like, women something.
Women something or another.
Yeah, I saw some people celebrating. Women are mentioning that, I think, a few days ago. Of course, we should recognize women every day because they are the backbone of society.
Absolutely.
However, it's cool. Whatever. Enjoy.
Yeah, and celebrate those women around you during this month, but always.
Yeah, and actually, I'll save her information for the shout out. But actually, this episode today was inspired for me by a woman friend of mine who gave me a book. And today's episode is going to be a section from it. So what we're talking about today is tuning into you. And I got the episode idea from a section by Scott Belsky. I believe he works with Adobe. He's like one of the execs at Adobe. And the name of the book is called Manage Your Day to Day. It's edited by Jocelyn Glei, or Glee, Glei. And it's edited because it's just a bunch of pieces by different authors. And so the section that I read kind of made me think a little bit, because we often speak about being present, and we often speak about how do you just kind of keep your mind at peace and relax, things like that. But reading this small little piece, it was like 5 or 6 pages maybe, just kind of gave me some cute, like quick, succinct ideas on ways to maximize, like tapping into your own mind and tapping into the power that you already have within you, instead of, or in place of, hopping on a device, or the things that we tend to do when we do have, time in our day. I don't know about you, Carlie, but like I tend to get distracted from those periods of time where you could like kind of tune in, and I'm just doing other stuff. So,
and it's interesting because I feel like on almost every episode we talk a lot about tuning into yourself and making sure you start from a place of self-awareness. And then sometimes that can be the farthest thing from our mind, or something that we just don't do, like out of habit or out of socialization or whatever.
Yeah. So, Carlie, what do you tend to do? Like, what are things that you find yourself doing when you are like in line somewhere, when you're like waiting for somebody to come out of a parking lot, when you're at a stoplight? Those periods of transition is, I guess, what I'll call them. But you know what I mean? Like, those moments that you have a moment, how do you tend to spend them?
It depends. I have like a couple of different ways, but intentionally, like when I'm doing those, like I'll like driving a lot, I try to like listen to things where I learn or I grow now. And that's how easily I notice I get distracted at stoplights and stuff, because I'm like, wait, what is he talking about? And I gotta like rewind and go back. But in line, I've noticed that I used to get on my phone every single time I was in line, and I really try to stop doing that and just try to like look around now. So I've kind of intentionally made myself like look up and look around you and just kind of see what's going on instead of getting caught up in my phone.
Yeah, I usually tend to pick up my phone, and I notice like it'll be the same kind of series of things I go to, like check Twitter, check Instagram, check your text. Like you just kind of go through, go to email. I've started playing Slices. I forgot, wait, what's the first game that first got me on this? I can't think of what it was, but my friend got me playing some game, and then during the game, like they have so many damn ads, like for other games, that I was like, damn, that do look kind of good. So I ended up getting one of the other ones too, called Slices, or maybe Slices was the first one I got. It's one where you like put these pieces together in circles and whatever. Dang, I can't think of the other one, but I started playing those wordscapes, where you do like the anagrams and like fill out the crosswords too. So I started doing those types of things every once in a while when it's like, all right, I just don't feel like doing whatever's in front of me, or if I'm in a space where I'm just like waiting to be next in line or something like that. But why do you think it is so hard? Because you mentioned being intentional and how you spend that time intentionally, but why do you feel like it's not a regular thing, or like what is it about those transitional times that usually lead us to distract ourselves?
Well, I think our phones in general, like any time that you're not doing something, like you're not face to face with someone, you're not on a meeting, like even people be on phone calls, be on their phones, like looking at everything. I think it's just a habit in society now. But I think there are a plethora of reasons it could be distracting you from whatever's going on, keeping your brain busy. Like we all have attention spans that are less than fish. I think like 5 years ago it was like less than 7 seconds. I bet now it's probably under 4, something like that. So that avoidance, a lot of subconscious things, but I think it's just a habit of constantly intaking things or being a part of something, or even with social media, like there's a need like to constantly be on and to be interacting with people. And so I think that that's how we feed that instant gratification.
Mm-hmm. But I also find it interesting that while we want to feel like we're like looking at something or being stimulated is kind of what you were talking about. Like we feel like we need a constant stimulation. It's also interesting because it's something to do, and I feel like it makes us feel like we're doing something and we're being busy sometimes, and not like for the sake of being busy like with work per se, but to do nothing or like to actually just stand in line, it feels like, oh, I'm not doing anything, or it feels like this is unfocused activity. So there's no intention, there's no focus, whereas at least, you know, I'm hopping on, I'm reading Twitter, or I'm like looking at stuff or doing something. So that's one of the biggest things. But what I liked about this section of the book, though, is that they were talking about you know, how many of these moments we have through the day and how we can better use those in transition periods or those in between times in your day to day to tune into yourself, to be a little bit more harnessing like your actual thoughts and your creativity also. So a lot of it was not just about taking a step away from the connectedness, but giving your brain kind of just space to actually think and, you know, come up with its own ideas. Because if we're always hopping on the phone real quick, you're just kind of consuming things and you're not really spending time with yourself, which I wonder if we like looked at how much time we spend doing certain things throughout the day, how much time we literally do spend like actually thinking to yourself or talking to yourself.
I would guess that it's very little to none, and not only in those times of transition, but like people don't like not doing things in general, because we, you know, our worth isn't our work or whatever's happening. Like people want to be busy or want to feel good about doing things, and you feel accomplished when you get stuff done, like you said. So, I sent an email during my break today, my 5-minute break. It's like, yeah, you could have been thinking. But I think that's probably where a lot of problems arise for people and for society on a greater level, because we're not giving ourselves that space. We're not giving ourselves a blank slate to create or to think or to question. And I think those are some of the greatest things that human minds can do, and rarely do we give ourselves those times.
Yeah, so imagine that, you know, what would happen if you cut out a lot of that stimuli that you're putting in front of your face. And what does happen is you're kind of unleashing it from another source or like from within yourself. And that sounds real frou-frou. But anyway, here's how we're doing it. So one of the first points that they made was renew your interest in yourself. Carlie, have you ever like unplugged for a certain amount of days, like an extended amount of time? And if so, if you have any ideas or thoughts on that, like how did that feel and what happened?
I have. Most recently, it was whenever I went to Tulum and I got off social media. And that's when I noticed that I get on social media to avoid feeling feelings sometimes. And that was something I was subconsciously doing. But I did that. That was really nice. And this week I'm actually taking time off, not just for transition, but time off from all of my personal training clients to spend with myself, because I haven't planned for my year. I haven't really just sat and thought. And I was like, man, I need some time for me, some time to sit with myself. And so I text all my clients, hey, y'all, I'm doing a self-care week. I'm gonna see y'all next week. You know, hit up Lala if y'all need her. Like, I think it's so important. So that's what it's looked like for me lately. If you're thinking about big things, I would say small things every day. I make sure that I do a walk, like 15 to 20 minutes, or that I do like meditation, or both. Like that I'm taking just a few minutes every single day to do something for myself that is not filled with anything else.
But do you notice anything different when you do take like that extended time away?
Oh my God, absolutely. Yes. I feel much more full. I feel like I have a lot more energy. I feel like sparks of creativity that I'm able actually to process and to think through. Like I'll have other ideas pop up, and then I'll remember things like, oh man, I told Lexi I was going to do this and didn't do it. And it just gives my brain space to process things for myself.
The last time I can think of unplugging for an extended amount of time was when I went to Denver last August, and I took like Slack, I took my email, and I took like Asana and a lot of the work apps off my phone. I disconnected from like the work social media type stuff, and I think I just had my own. But it was cool because I was in Denver and I was just by myself also, and I got a hotel room, and it's like, all right, that first day was like, man, this day's long as hell. Like you're kind of like bored a little bit because this was mostly unplugging like from work and like from my teams and things like that. And so it's kind of like, well, you know, don't have anything to check, not looking at anything, what's going on. But then very quickly, like after like day 2 or 3, it's almost like something kind of clicked differently to where I really was paying more attention to the things around me. I was exploring. I went to like some parks, things like that. And then I found like I really didn't miss like my work stuff at all. I literally wasn't checking in at all on any other projects. And then when I had got back, everything had gone fine anyway. So it was just like, oh, I can actually take that time to chill. And I think I thought I was going to be doing a whole lot of like, think about life and answer life questions, which I really didn't. But it was actually also still cool because I spent that time kind of just relaxing and like exploring a little more. So it was interesting, and it really mostly just showed me that it is possible to unplug for a while. And it definitely does kind of just like unlock something different in you. So that's something to try. And if you feel like you don't have time to unplug, then that most likely means that you do need to. So it's one of those things where you just have to make it happen, and you'll see that, you know, everything's going to be fine.
Tony Robbins says something to the effect of, if you don't have 10 minutes in your day for you, then you don't have a life. Mm-hmm. And so take at least 10 minutes to do something different.
Mm-hmm. Another main point that they made was to preserve unstructured time. Carlie, you're big on planning as well. How do you structure out like your week when you're going to plan out how you're using your time?
I like to have a day where, for example, on Fridays, I don't train clients, I don't teach classes, and I know that that's for me. So some weeks it turns out to be a biz dev day. Some weeks I'm at the beach, tanning these cheeks, and that's nice. Hopefully museums and things soon, but I make sure I at least have a day. And if I can't have a day, then I have an afternoon. Like I have time to do whatever it is that I need to do. And I don't put pressure on myself that has to be quote unquote productive time, or that it has to be quote unquote rest time, because then you can feel guilty. It's whatever Carlie needs in that moment time, which is really nice. But I would like to do that every day. I don't, but I at least have that one day every day during like the week. What about you?
Well, I actually started a new routine this week that I got. Where did I get it from? I think actually I might have got it from this book, but like from different pieces and different things people were saying, plus things I'd already been doing. But what I've added in mostly was, I thought about, you know, when am I most productive, and then what stuff do I need to be doing during that time. So I just added into my day 30 minutes of solitude / meditation. So like I don't necessarily need to meditate for that 30 minutes. I could be like a 10-minute meditation or whatever, but to just be like by myself during that time. And then I scheduled in an hour of this, unless it's something else we're about to talk about later. Yeah, which we'll talk about a part of it too. But I also schedule like an hour of time that I'm disconnected from phone, internet, and I'm just doing work where I'm like just writing things down. And then I set, I think, 4 hours to focus on like client time. So meetings and any client work can go into that just time there. And then because I have a new VP of like biz dev and operations, and he's working at a certain time, I try to work on biz dev now, like from a certain period of time in the day. And so I kind of went through my week and I just like did these different shade blocks. But then within the blocks, now if I'm adding stuff in, I try to add it within like the space that it makes sense. And now I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off from the preserve unstructured time, but I've already found with the first day that I did this that it was like one of the most productive days, and it started out with me not being connected for about an hour and a half. But then it's like once I started doing the client work and like hopping on my laptop and stuff, I was like the most focused ever, because I knew like exactly, it was just very clear what I was supposed to be doing, what my focus was for the day. And it feels like I got started way better, which then, of course, leads to like you actually continue working, you're doing stuff, and you're like on the ball and you're like responding until you stop. And then it's like, yeah, you start taking longer breaks and whatnot by like 3. But I was like, man, that felt really good. So I'm going to stick to it for the rest of this week and see how it goes.
Oh, I like that. I want to add some stuff like that to my schedule. I have to think about what it looks like, but definitely.
But I know we've talked about it before too, and that you're a proponent of setting aside time. Whether we've talked about setting aside time to brainstorm before, we've talked about setting aside time for like play, or like you were saying, just to have like, this is just free time. I'm just going to honor to kind of do whatever comes up. And so that's what we're talking about with this unstructured time. And an example that he gave was Jeff Bezos, who said he leaves time in his calendar to just roam. So like, Well, and this is probably pre-COVID, but to just roam around, to like just ask questions, to explore things. And he doesn't put any calendars on or any meetings on the calendar, but he, at this time, he might be like, oh, let me think about this guy. And he might just put stuff on like as he's thinking about it that day. And they said that it's a great way to just be open to activating towards long-term things versus, if you're really looking at your calendar and your like time day to day, you're just thinking about like what's right now, what do I have to do, what do I have to do, versus kind of just like being open sometimes to just what happens.
And I was thinking of other examples from like reading and different things. And actually Bill Gates has been taking 1 week off twice a year. So I guess 2 weeks a year that he calls think weeks. And he's been doing this since the 80s.
Do you know any details about what they do?
So he said he takes boxes of books, papers, reports, etc., and spends the week reading the papers, either written by Microsoft employees that are pitching new ideas or innovations or potential investments. He reads I think it's the Wall Street Journal maybe, or the New York Times, and he reads as many papers as possible, sometimes doing so 18 hours a day and staying up until the wee hours of the morning. Some other details, you can Google it, Think Week, Bill Gates.
That's cool.
But he was like, it's solitude. He's like, nobody's around him. It's just him. The only people that come are to deliver food, to deliver papers, and then Diet Crush and Diet Coke, I think are the two things that he like drinks.
That's really cool though, because it's not just like time to like just think either, but that's kind of interesting to be reading just new ideas, especially from his own people, and just kind of keeping up with like just what's going on. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and if you think about like him being in the field of science and innovation, like that's so important to be able to foster that and put those pieces together, not only for himself but also for his business. And then someone else I know that in real life does this is my homie E. He's been doing this for like 3 years. He'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go have a thinking weekend. He'll turn off his phones and they'll be pointed like, oh, this one I just want to ponder life and ponder things. This one I want to think about health and work on this, or Vipassana, I don't want to speak for 2 whole days or a week or 10 days or whatever. And they're very pointed, but he said that's when he has some of his biggest breakthroughs.
Yeah, when you're just still is when I think a lot of those things happen, which is what I feel like I remember from that week. But that would be cool to have at least twice a year. That would be nice to have a week and to really just let that just be exploration, thinking, whatever it is makes sense for you. And maybe starting with like a weekend could be something that's a shorter version of that. Maybe we should do something like that for ourselves and like report back or something.
Absolutely.
Another great point, and I really liked this point that they made in this section on tuning into yourself, is being open to serendipity. So I feel like most people can think about a time where you just happen to be like talking to the person next to you, or maybe you had left your phone in the car and something happened and it turned out to have much greater benefits to you or to that person than if you had been plugged in or like not paying attention. Do you have any stories like that where you just happen to like really just run into something great and good opportunity or person?
Yeah. Me getting involved in education and branching out holistically dope like that. Charlie, my homegirl, Carlie Kemp, shout out to her, Dr. Kemp, she working on that at Harvard, but she founded Change the Tune. And way before she founded it, she was on a panel, and when I was at USC, I was in the class, she was on the panel. Could have been on my phone, not paying attention, whatever. But then I actually went up and talked to her afterwards instead of leaving and rushing home and doing that. That led to us having coffee. And then that led to, eventually me getting into schools and doing different things. And that's just like one of many examples from not rushing out of classes, from actually listening to people when they talk, to ordering at restaurants and being in line next to people and just kind of having a conversation with them. That's led to like clients and different things.
Yeah, that does end up happening a lot. One of the first examples I thought about was, I remember that one time, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but one time when I was in New York, I remember having to get on the train and being like, dang, I forgot my headphones. Like, God dang. It's like, oh man, I gotta sit on this train and actually listen to people and like look at people. But I remember I was sitting on the train, and so for once, like I was really like looking around, like you hear everybody's conversations. Every person is just so different sitting in there. And I remember this group of boys getting on the train, and they were just like talking. It was like after school or something, and somebody saying like something was gay, like, oh man, that's gay or something like that. And then his friend was like, nah, you shouldn't say that because that's not good term or phrase to use because it's offensive, blah blah blah. And the other guy being like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right, my bad. And I remember being like, oh, look at the kids today. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then after that, it was like back to back just stuff happening. it was like a guy hopped in the train, and you know, he was just trying to make money. So I don't know if he was homeless or what all his situation was, but he started telling jokes. And dog, the whole train was dying. Like, he was so funny. Like, he was actually so funny. We were just in there like cracking up. And I was like, oh man, this is like an awesome train ride. And like, to actually pay attention to the stuff that's around you is like, you know, I would have missed out on all of that, because I for sure wouldn't have been trying to look in nobody's eyes and would have been listening to whatever. And so just things like that, where it's like, man, you kind of just get to enjoy your surroundings. Other thoughts similar to yours that I had as well were, you know, I can point out so many times, actually my whole business I can probably make into a tree of like things going to this person or that thing, and then all of that coming from this person and all of that coming from this thing. And some of the clients I could think of are things like when me and Trav used to work with an app, and he had a meeting with the Tate brothers, Lorenz and Lamar. And I remember just like him saying like, oh, you can come along if you want. And I was just there, just to be there. And I had went with them, and, you know, I'd met them. I was talking about my social media thing. At that time, it was more focused on social. And then like years later, like when they had their audio series coming out, Lamar, just because he would touch base with me every once in a while, I remember him reaching out to me and like, hey, like the person we have working on this isn't working, and I remember you kind of doing something like this, so do you want to work on the project? And so from there, you know, working on a particular project with the agency, that's grown to working with them on things, which grown to working with like Sierra and Sue Kids, which grew to like a bunch of other things. Mm-hmm. So everything's very connected like that. And sometimes it just comes from you opening your mouth sometimes, or you having a conversation, which I ain't gonna lie, I hate doing. But, you know, I just noticed like there's so much more opportunity just to say hello to somebody, or, you know, just to have some small talk. One thing Damo said one time, that I was like, dang, that's kind of profound. I think I wrote it down. He said, he's like, yo, I hate when people say like, oh, I hate small talk. I don't like small talk. He's like, you could turn small talk into big things. And he was like talking about how, you know, just short, not really even networking, but just kind of a little back and forth sometimes, like really can build relationships or open up opportunities from other people, or for you to give opportunity, even more important, to other people as well, which often opens the doors for you too. So just something to think about with being open to what's going around you.
Man, I thought we had a conversation this morning. We were sitting out enjoying some sunshine, drinking coffee, just talking and just asking questions. Neither of us had our phones. We were just chopping it up, and, you know, one of her friends is working on something that one of my friends had worked on previously, and so there's a connection, and hopefully that can grow into something. But even in those small moments,
bro, and I already forgot about that too. Don't let me forget the information.
I got you, bro.
I forgot all about that convo.
But yeah, so we didn't have our phones. We were just actually having conversations, and how we both had our phones, that probably wouldn't have happened. Oh, I say the last thing I wanted to say is just making sure that you're aware and present, because being aware has also probably kept me safe a couple of times, especially walking alone in these LA streets. Like I noticed a person was following me when I was walking, and I was like, oh, had I been in my phone, your girl might have got, but I didn't. Shout out to that. And not to put fear, because I don't live with a spirit of fear. I do live with a spirit of awareness and making sure I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
And so making sure that you are too, especially during Women's History Month, when you're walking home and doing stuff, or sitting in your car, because I do that too. Pay attention to people around you and cars around you.
Yeah, that is important. And that's something I kind of learned from my parents before too. It's just like, yo, don't walk around like a victim. Like, you got to pay attention. You got to walk a little pep in your step, do what you got to do. But the advantages of living and being open to serendipity, or the way to do that, is, for one, just try leaving your phone in your pocket sometimes. Like, not even like at home, but leave it in your pocket when you feel like you're in a crowd of people, or if you're in line, and just one of those moments, just, you're going to notice, like if you're listening to this, you're going to notice the next time you just like automatically grab for your phone. There's also this thing where if somebody around you grabs their phone, we automatically grab our phone too. So be aware of that and notice that next time, and then just like give it a little tap tap, and then be like, not today, phone, not today. And then just look around you or talk to somebody. Go ahead.
I say, and then look at every interaction and every event as and look for the sources of unexpected value in every occasion, like something good that came from it, or something that you are more curious about. Just looking at those situations causes you to pay attention and be more present in the moment.
And just develop the discipline. So back to kind of just being aware. Just start trying to do that every once in a while, a little bit, and you'll see what happens when you're just more present. Which takes us to the last thing that they were talking about, or that he was talking about rather, in this section of the book was to prioritize being present. So this kind of like brings everything all together at this point. But it's very important to just alternate, times where you're connected, and then alternate some time in there where you're not as connected, and when you're spending time truly being present.
Because when you are constantly connected, you miss out on being present. When your focus is always on others, you have an insatiable appetite for information and that external validation. You're missing out on opportunities to mine potential of your own mind, to contemplate ideas, to develop things, to feel things, to process for yourself. If you don't ever give yourself that pause, you miss the magic of that moment.
And it's important to recognize also what it is that is making you feel like grab your phone. Like, what is it that is turning you into being connected? And if it's the wrong reasons, I think one of the main things that you just started mentioning was validation. Like, oh, did anybody message me? And it doesn't have to be like super deep, like, do people love me or anything like that. But yeah, like, do I get any messages? Like, what's going on? And if you pay attention again to like what's happening when you pick up your phone, it'll kind of, it should allow you to better understand what some of those insecurities may be that are a part of that. And it's not always insecurity. Sometimes it's just like, damn, bitch, I just want to see what time it is. But, sometimes it is like, so I know what it is for me. Like, do you recognize that you feel a certain kind of way when you grab your phone?
I don't know what you mean by that question.
Like, I notice a lot of times as soon as I might be in the middle of something, an email, and then it's like, I don't want to think about this last sentence, and I just will grab my phone.
Yeah, for sure.
So like being distracted is one for sure for me. Sometimes it's just like you just feel like, I don't say alone, like it doesn't have to be that deep, but you're just like, I'm just bored, or
you want to feel
by myself, and or want to pick up. Let's see what's going on.
Instant ding. Like we're the microwave generation, and Gen Z is, man, if we're microwaves, I don't know what they are. But it gives you that constant connection. I notice, like you said, distraction, or when I'm trying to avoid something, either subconsciously or consciously. I even use my games for that. Like, let me go ahead and slide on dominoes with my uncle real quick because I know I gotta finish this thing.
Not dominoes. But the point of that is that you can't imagine what will be if you're always focused on what already is. And so if you're hopping in on Twitter, like, sure, it's like, this is the latest what's going on, but it's like you're always tuning in on what's going on right now. But this isn't any time to like really explore and think, the time to tap in, to tune in, like really see what's going on. Where are you? How do you feel? It's different.
I had a big revelation this year. I was like, I don't want to just be a consumer. I want to be a creator, and I want to make my own waves, not ride just these. And so I have a rule for myself. Like, I don't get on, I don't get on social media on this day of the week. And then the only time I can get on other days is like, are you posting something? Are you creating? Because if not, get your ass off.
Right.
Because you just consuming. You out here consuming.
I'm here for nothing.
Being a sheep.
And this next one, on prioritizing being present, goes back to what I was mentioning earlier with my new routine, is to create windows of non-stimulation in your day. So that's what they were calling it. Just on my whiteboard now, I put non-stimmy time. And from another point I got from another section, so like all these things, like I put them together. Another piece was talking about how, why a lot of times you are basing your day's work off of like your email and kind of your to-do list or whatever, because it's easy to like answer something and it's gone, like respond, attend to this, attend to that. But they said what is hard to break down in your schedule is really those longer term, like big type, not just projects, but just the things you're trying to do. So like, for example, with me, it may be easy for me to break down and see like, oh, client work meeting. But sometimes it's harder when it's like, okay, here I have all these biz dev tasks, and it's like, it's not exactly like broken down. And so it's like, all right, you need to make sure that I have mine right here. Choose like top two complex goals. That's what they call them, complex goals, because you can't just put it down to do this and check it off. It's like, you need to break down, do this, then you have to do this, then do that. And just to put them down so that as you have your times that you're tuning in, or as you have your non-stimulation time or whatever chunk of your day, and even as you're going through like emails, for example, and you're like, dang, which one should I answer now? That you always can refocus back to which things go towards those bigger complex goals. So you can still make sure you're chipping away at those things. Anyway, so I had developed those 2 complex goals. I didn't develop them. I had them because it was like, here's 2 bigger things that I'm working on, but it's just so many pieces to it. So I put them down. But then during my non-stimmy time, I said, okay, I'm going to use that time to focus on those things. And so I just had like my notebook or my books, and I was doing more of just writing and thinking about stuff and kind of planning. So it's that time to just explore and use your own kind of brain to get ideas down or to focus in on something without the use of your phone or without the internet, etc. And what he said, though, which was important too, is you can train your brain to not need to hop onto something for stimulation. But he was like, if you're doing this period of time and you do end up checking your phone or you do look at something, just stop right there. So like, just stop and then try again next time, because it's like, you really just need to train your mind to just go until, go up to that point.
Brains are so cool, and we really can train our brains and our bodies, these things. It's just being very intentional with it. And one of the most important things, I think, of this whole episode, one of the most important points is to learn to listen to your gut and your intuition in yourself as much as you listen to everything else around you. Like as much as you're searching for that external information, because y'all know Lexi and I, we gonna Google something real quick.
Real fast.
But as much as we do that, like we also need to pause and listen to ourselves. And I've noticed that I do this a lot when I'm trying to make big decisions, and like I might call Alexia to get her opinion, but I want to make sure I've sat with it first. And then that's when I call other people, because it's so important to know where you stand on something before you start to fill your cup with everybody else's thoughts and opinions, because that stuff gets heavy. And it's important to know where you stand.
Mm-hmm. And so in all of this, remember that in staying fully present, you're basically allowing the universe to work its magic. And, people are passing by you every day. Like it's always opportunity to give and receive around you all the time. And it's important for us to have these times where, or just to recognize how much time, again, that you do have, that you could just like be focused in on right now. Think about what's just going on with you. Think about how you feel. Think about, or how can you help somebody right around you. But this whole episode was really with the intention to re-spark, like that you can do that throughout the day. And also just to reinforce recognizing how many things really just happen just kind of off the whim. Like you can't plan everything, or you can kind of have a plan or you have your eyes open for stuff. But to that point, like you have to actually have your eyes open. So we'll be thinking about these ideas, thinking about stuff for work or for whatever all the time. But then sometimes you really just have to think about the question or think about what you're doing and just like pay attention. And a lot of times these things will show up in a way that you wouldn't have imagined. And so I think it was really cool just reading, again, this like 6-page section of this book, just because I thought it was a really good reminder to tune into yourself and recognizing that I probably don't tune into myself as much as I could.
Absolutely. And letting the universe work its magic. You're not giving it space. Whenever you don't have space for things in your life, and we've talked about creating space in your life, even for yourself, then things can't manifest in the way that they need to.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed learning about this stuff. And today, I want to shout out Celeste, my friend, who actually gave me that book. I go to her house on Thursdays to work with her. She's in Inglewood area. I go down there to work with her. We usually go hiking in the morning, and just it's really cool because she's an older woman. She's like 50 something, I believe, but she looks great, and she just has that good energy. You know how sometimes people who are older than you, it seems like they always like they got to know more than you, and they don't care what you do, or they don't respect what you do. And she's very just open to, the things going on with other folks. She appreciates my work and me, and we just do good, like just hanging out sometimes. And it's cool to have older women friends too, I've found, and people you can actually talk to about stuff. And it's like not really judgy at all or not really anything. So I appreciate her and that she thought about me. She's actually working on a mobile market idea right now where just like the ice cream truck comes around and you hear like the music in the city areas, that she wants to do something like that with like fresh fruits and vegetables. So she's working on that, and she's a photographer. So just shouting her out in general.
Shout out to Celeste for the good vibes and the wisdom and sharing space and ideas. It is Women's History Month, but we always celebrate women. So if you have women who you want to shout out, who are doing amazing things or really pouring into you, please let us know at Carlie's Couch on pretty much every social media ever. At Lextopia, at CC Fierce, let us know.
And this week's question of the week, Carlie, is how will you stay more open to the possibilities of serendipity this week?
I am going to make it a point. Two things. One is whenever I'm out, I'm not going to be listening to podcasts or music or different things while I'm in line or I'm at the grocery store. I'm just going to try to be present and be open and seeing what that can lead to. And then I really liked your scheduling idea of putting some time in your schedule where it's like to the complex tasks and no internet and no phone or whatever, and just focusing on that. So I'm going to actually implement that. I'm going to lie and not say today. I won't lie and won't say today. So I'm going to say tomorrow.
And I think I'm going to focus more on taking advantage of being in space with other people. I mean, I know it's COVID, but for example, like at the dog park and things like that, where, you know, people are kind of standing out there and just trying to have some conversation, not have my headphones in at every moment, and just chat with people sometimes, I think is very beneficial for sure. So let us know how you plan to be open to serendipity this week. If you have any cool stories to share, would love to hear them as well.
And we'll holler at y'all next week.
Peace out.